Oh, crap. I was supposed to play another video there. What's up, everybody? Welcome in. We're talking about back to the Browns draft. I'm Jacob. With me, Dawg Pound Daily site expert Randy Gurzi. How you doing, man?
I'm good. How's it going, man?
Well, I've been ripping up tile in my bathroom. So slow. I'm on vacation this week and next week. So I'm like, well, we put a new shower and stuff in, and now I'm like trying to take the tile up, and it's that laminate, the like laminate tile, the self adhesive stuff. It
Yeah,
don't want to come up.
no.
It's glued down. It's bullshit, guys. We are brought to you as always by our friends over at Homage. I got actually my Cavs shirt on today, the throw the hammer down shirt, which is just like part of the Austin Car collection. But check out Homage. A link in the description down below. Take care of all
And
that.
I got the Bernie Kosar.
Oh hell yeah! I didn't even. I could only see his hair. I didn't even realize.
Yeah.
I realized like, oh, it's. I love Bernie's hair from back in the day. But
Yeah.
there's a link down in the description below. Go check it out. All right, man. We're here to talk about wide receivers here for the Browns in the draft. Even though it was a little slow start for this video here, I was trying to figure these things out. So we don't necessarily got to go in any particular order. You can go from 1 to 5, or you can go from 5 to 1, however you want to do it, or you can just start throwing names out there. But if you want to go first, let's talk about some wide receivers from the Browns.
All right, I'm going to start. I'll start near the end. I'll start with my number 5 guy, which is Xavier Hutchinson from Iowa State. I had already spoken to you a little bit about him. I like the guy. I like his size. I like the fact that he can go and win the jump balls. My concern with him is, I was really big on Hakeem Butler from Iowa State, so I'm hoping that I'm not falling in love with another guy who's just good because of where he's playing and the fact that he's the only receiver out there. But just the size, he's very nuanced route runner. He's able to create separation, even though he's not a burner, just because of the fact that he can run routes really well. I think he gives them kind of that guy in the red zone. I know they've been trying to use Donovan Peoples-Jones. I absolutely hate goal line fades, but they keep trying to use them for whatever reason, and DPJ is not coming down with them. But I think Hutchinson's the kind of guy that's got a little bit more size, a little more width to him, and I think he's somebody that could help in that role. Probably won't be a starter, but I think he's somebody that with 2 good starters around him could put up some numbers.
Yeah, I think I agree with all of that. You got to find somebody. They're going to love that goal line fade, so you might as well just try to find someone that can do it.
I wish it was illegal because it never works, but then it'll work one time out of 10, and everyone's like, "See, that's why we do it." But man,
well, that's what I was going to say. I think I've seen it work like 10% of the time, and everybody's like, "That's enough."
Back in the day when Dez Bryant was in his prime, that's kind of how he made his money. He was excellent at that. So if you got a guy that's good at it, but you can't just do it and think everybody can excel at it.
With any of them,
take a certain guy.
I think the Browns have tried it with Jarvis Landry before, which just doesn't have the size that other guys do. So I'll start with 5, and this is one that I think is really interesting because of the school. Rome Odunze, I think is how you pronounce his name. I'm probably totally butchering that. Plays for Washington, and going up against Pac-12 defenses, it's similar, I think, to your issue. You're like, oh, guy plays for Iowa State, as compared to Odunze, who plays for Washington in the Pac-12. Not a ton of great competition defensive back wise, but I'm looking in this draft for explosive players that can go vertical from the wide receiver standpoint. And if the Browns are going to look for just that, especially and go in the later rounds, he's a player I like. They projected him, like if you can Google like how fast like a 40-yard dash time for players, and they'll like project it, or they'll bring it from high school or something like that. They had him clocked in at like a 4.33 as what they think he will run, and that'll be really interesting to watch it because we know speed gets overdrafted, right? And it's always going to get overdrafted. He's young, redshirt sophomore, 6'3", 200 pounds is what Sports Reference has him at. But I just think he's got the size and speed. I would like to see a little bit more of a slot receiver probably for the Browns. But a situation where you got somebody 6'3" that can run a 4.33, I don't think that's going to make your offense worse.
No, and I think the good thing that the Browns have is Amari Cooper can play in the slot. If you have somebody else that can fill in that outside role, you have no problem moving him into the slot. And when he was in Dallas, he had a lot of success in that role. When you had Michael Gallup playing on the outside, or Michael Gallup and CeeDee Lamb on the outside, and Cooper was in the slot, so he can, he's such a great route runner as well. So yeah, I don't think I three of my guys are pretty much slot guys as well. But I don't think you have to be pigeonholed in that. If you see a guy that you like, and as you said here with the Dunze, I'm sure I'm saying it wrong too, but he's same thing with Hutchinson. Neither one of them I don't think you would have to take with your first pick. I think they'll be around in the middle rounds if you're wanting somebody that you can throw out there, let them compete with David Bell, see if they can beat him for some snaps. I think if you go second round, you're obviously going to be playing them right away. So if they want to sit there and try to find somebody that they can kind of push Bell and see who's the better player, then yeah, mid-round guys like this would probably be pretty good.
Yeah, I agree. All right, number 4, what you got for me?
All right, Cedric Tillman from Tennessee, who was actually really high on my list coming into the season. I liked him a lot. He had a fantastic year in 2021. 1,081 yards and 12 touchdowns. He's another big guy at 6'3", 215, but he's also able to get deep. He averaged 17 yards a catch last year. Concerns with him, durability. He only played 5 games before breaking out in 21. He's only played 6 games this year. He's also going to be a little bit older, being a redshirt senior, and I know the Browns kind of seem to veer away from that. I get it, why you would do that to a point, but sometimes I think it's okay to get a guy who might be 22 or 23 rather than 21. I think it's time to start getting talent rather than just age. Yeah. But Tillman, I think, is somebody else who could probably slide a little bit further. But I think my biggest concern has got to be that durability. We've drafted too many guys who are injured, and they stay injured. But even so, just the talent level is there. So he's somebody that I still kind of got an eye on.
Yeah. I like the idea of a second round wide receiver, but they've kind of shown us their propensity for wide receivers and defensive tackles to come in the mid rounds. So knowing some of those prospects for Browns fans, you should know some of these names because there's just a reality that it may come down to this. And they may continue to also just draft on a lot of traits, which is what you were talking about with the age being part of the traits that they be super athletic, be all this, all these things. And it's good to know some of the names that I think they'll probably upset us and maybe go after instead of some of the other ones.
Yeah.
Parker Washington.
They hit on DPJ. So,
yeah.
It could happen. You could find a late round guy that, ends up really breaking out. So,
and it's too early for Woods or Bell.
And that's why I don't have an issue with looking at a mid-round guy because, Bell, 3rd round pick for a reason. So he wasn't the expectations that he was going to come in and be this big time contributor right away were a little bit crazy. I liked seeing that he made that clutch catch in that last game down those are the things you want to see from a 3rd round rookie is that when your number's called, it's a big moment that you come up. So I've been encouraged by Bell. I don't think there's been anything wrong with how he's played. I think some people probably consider him a bust because they thought he'd come in and be Jarvis Landry, which was crazy because he wasn't a slot receiver at Purdue. But I do like the idea of fixing the defense and then maybe looking a little bit later for somebody to compete with Bell.
Yeah, I agree. And it's probably very, very likely that that's how it rolls. I got Parker Washington here at 4 from Penn State. And this is where it might be a situation where, we talked about when David Njoku was re-signed, that a lot of the money and the years that they gave him was for what they thought he would become, more so than what he had done, just because it had been a lot of inconsistencies with hands early on. And then Freddie Kitchens didn't want to play him for whatever reason. That was fun. All that stuff. So they projected it. I think Parker Washington's the same situation because I think he has a lot of these traits and measurables and just not a ton of production at Penn State. Again, this is very similar in my mind to Donovan Peoples-Jones, who has all the physical tools, was not developed. I think Parker Washington's a little bit of a bit more polished player than DPJ was, but he doesn't have a quarterback that could really sling it around the yard either. And he was going up against some good Big Ten defenses, he had one of what I thought was one of his best games as a college player against the Buckeyes this year. If you go and watch some of his tape, or if you just go watch that game, you'll see him, make a spot. He can go inside, he can go outside a little bit. You have 5'10", a little bit undersized, but he's like 215. They have him listed at 215. His highest year last year, he played in 13 games. He had 64 catches for 820 yards, only 611 this year. So 3 years in college, 1,900 yards. That's all you're looking at, in 12 touchdowns. So, but you're looking at 13.2 a catch. I just think this is a guy that he creates after the catch. He's not necessarily going to explode off the line, but he has a really good feel for zone coverage and to find the hole in the zone. And you can't have enough of those players.
No, you really can. And another thing about him, I know the numbers aren't impressive, but he did a little bit on special teams with punt returns and kick returns. So they didn't use him there a lot, but just the fact that he knows how to do that could help. Obviously, you have DPJ out there and doing the punts. You'd kind of like to have another guy that could take that role from him so that he can focus more on being the number 2 receiver. If Jerome Ford ends up more in the offensive game plan next year, or if he misses time as he did this year, it's good to have somebody that can back him up. I know some people are hopeful that Jakeem Grant's going to come back next year. I don't think he will. That contract was created to cut him after 1 year, and he was injured. So he's 30, has a torn Achilles. I don't think he's coming back. So I don't think it's a bad idea to look at somebody that has some experience that you can try out in that area as well.
Yeah, I forgot about his kick returns.
Like I said, they weren't impressive. He didn't do a lot of it, but just knowing that he's got that experience with back there fielding the balls and everything, that's something.
18 returns this year. 18.
Yeah, he's doing a little more punt returns this year. So, and I know, like I said, I know the numbers aren't great, but you could have better blocking in the NFL. You never know. It's something that you could try him at.
He's got the field vision and agility to do it. I mean, he can check that out. All right, moving on to number 3.
All right. Well, now I'm going to start getting closer to the ones that you probably have to start looking at in the second round. Maybe third round here for Zay Flowers from Boston College. Another guy that's not very big. He's only 5'10". He's right around 180 pounds. But he's one of those real shifty, speedy receivers, can play in the slot. He had 12 touchdown catches this year, 78 receptions total. So he's a guy that the ball comes his way a lot. He makes plays on the ball. He doesn't drop a lot. And I like the fact that, you could use him in the slot. He has experience on the outside. I don't know that his future is there in the NFL because of that size. He also has 7 punt returns in his career, not a whole lot, but I think Flowers is somebody that can mix in well when you got the 6'2" receivers on either side, and DPJ and Amari Cooper. Flowers in the slot can do a little bit of damage.
Yeah, it's between him and Marvin Mims for me. Like if we're talking about the kind of maybe third round or so, but Marvin Mims, you might have to go back into the second. I don't know. I think they're kind of in the same realm. I just like Mims a little bit better. I have no issues with Flowers whatsoever. Mims has, we keep saying this. He's returned punts. He's only returned 3 kicks. So he's not really a kick returner, but he's done some punts each year. And I just think when you watch him, it's easy to see he's explosive out of the slot. Again, under 6 feet, one of those smaller wide receivers at 175, 180, somewhere in that range is where they had him listed at. I just think I know this is a type, and both of us are going to this type, but it's what they don't have. It's what they don't have. And he can get vertical. He's not going to be like Tyreek Hill kind of speed. I don't think Mims quite gets there, but he'll probably run in the 4.4s. I mean, he'll probably be 4.4s, maybe mid 4.4s, something like that. But you can see it where there's a lot of comebacks routes that he ran this year in that Oklahoma offense where he gave a look like he was going to take it vertically, and they had to respect his speed, and they backed out and he was able to make some plays similar to another guy we'll talk about here soon. But 1,000 yards this year, which is interesting, consider all the changes that happened for Oklahoma. Gives 1,000 yards, 19.3 a catch last year, 22 yards a catch last year for Oklahoma in 16 his freshman season. So only 9 touchdowns, 5 touchdowns, 6 touchdowns. he's just the guy that can be a complementary piece out of the slot that can run. And I don't have the actual numbers here, but I didn't see really any issues with drops when I was watching him. So
No, I don't think he had too many issues with drops. And I'll jump ahead. Mims was my number 2 guy after Flowers, and they both do have that ability, to separate after the catch. I know Flowers had a few issues with drops earlier in his career. I didn't notice as near as many this year, but he definitely has the ability to make people miss after the catch. Mims has that as well. And we've seen that with Amari Cooper a bit this year. Once you get him in space and you have that opening, and you can get a 5-6 yard reception that turns into a 20-yard reception, those are huge for the offense. And
yeah.
I know people are, if you go on the Twitterverse right now, people are debating whether or not Deshaun Watson's any good. I think they're forgetting the fact that if a guy doesn't play in a real game for 700 days, that actually means something. I'm here, but he was in practice and he did the preseason. Okay.
There were some people that said that.
Yeah, I've seen that, and it makes me laugh. And I think that if there's 3 drop touchdowns so far since he's been there, if those are caught, narrative's completely different. But I think with a couple more games, full off season, we're going to see the Deshaun Watson returning to himself early next year. Getting guys like a Zay Flowers or a Marvin Mims who can create after the catch, having a quarterback that accurate, you could see that become very deadly in an offense. And people are on Stefanski a lot lately too, which is just laughable to me. But I'm not going to get into that right now. But he's a really good offensive mind, and I think that he'll be able to draw some stuff up where you're going to hear these guys that like to yell "run the damn ball" realize why they're working so hard to get the passing game figured out. You get the right guys in there with Watson playing like he can.
I remember like one of the first times I ever heard Jack Duffin speak on a podcast. He was just, this was like 2020. I'm thinking it was a couple years, but I heard him just talking about how inefficient because Jack would never run the ball. If it was up to Jack Duffin, they would never run the ball. And I just know that this evolution of the Browns offense, I know Jack's just sitting at home just smiling because he's like, I guess he did. He said, I just remember him. I think he was talking with Jake Burns. He's like, I would never run the ball.
I mean, you've heard me say it. People keep asking me, when would you pay a running back? Never. I mean, I love Nick Chubb. I wouldn't have paid him. Yeah. And I know that I sound like a crazy person for saying that, but Derrick Henry, look at Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry's fantastic. That offense is terrible. You're not going to win in the NFL with a running game. You just can't. And I was talking to someone not too long ago and asked them, when's the last time that a team that was focused completely on the running game won a Super Bowl? And they said, well, the Ravens did their first Super Bowl. That was 22 years ago. That was in the year 2000. Tom Brady and the Patriots, they didn't even run with their running backs. They just passed it to them. I mean, I don't know if the Chiefs, when they won the Super Bowl, if they even had a running back. I mean, it's right now, what are they running with? Isaiah Pacheco and Jerick McKinnon. I mean,
I keep getting thrown off by Pacheco because he's number 10 and he's like the same size as Tyreek Hill, and I'm like, wait, what?
When did he come back? But so yes, you can win certain games when you're running the ball, and this whole we win because we ran it 20, 30 times. Every team has that stat. Every team has that stat because when they're winning the game, they run it. But what happens is, we saw it happen in the Chiefs game after the 2020 season, but wanted to pretend it didn't happen. The Browns beat themselves in that game because of their run game. They could have beat the Chiefs if they could have actually passed the football, but they couldn't pass the football. So in the third quarter, they had a 9-minute drive to get within 1 touchdown. Chiefs are sitting there going, oh, this is fantastic. You just killed the entire clock for us, and we still have a touchdown lead. We score one more time, we're going to win because it's going to take you the entire fourth quarter to score again, which is what happened. So you have to be able to pass the ball. You have to be able to move it through the air. So I think the Browns know that. They're not stupid. You're not going to compete with Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson and Justin Herbert, and I know there's others in the AFC that I'm completely forgetting about. But you got all these great quarterbacks in the AFC, and you're not going to beat them by running the football. It's just not going to happen. So I think getting guys like Flowers, Mims, people like that can really round out the receiving core, getting Watson back on track. It can have, I think the narrative next year will shift a lot.
don't forget Trevor Lawrence.
Thank you. I knew there was a couple that I was missing, and Trevor Lawrence is, man, the last couple of weeks he's been fantastic.
Man, that Urban Meyer effect was pretty strong, wasn't it? I'll go with my number 2 because I know we both have the same number 1. But you and I were talking about this. I like Rasheed Rice from SMU. He may not in any way, shape, or form be within striking distance for the Browns. He's also played 4 years of college football, so he's a little bit older than what they like to do that early in the draft. I don't think he's an older player that they would say no to, but I think earlier in the draft they kind of look at that. But he's got really nice size, 6'3". He's close to 200 pounds. He's got real nice size, but he's still explosive. 1,300 yards this year, 14 yards per catch for his career, 13 yards per catch, 25 touchdowns, 3,100 yards in 4 years. Again, level of competition playing at SMU in the American Conference. What is that, adjustment? How does that translate? Does it translate well? That sort of thing. It's kind of the holdback there. But with Rasheed Rice, I think he is more of a well-rounded wide receiver than some of the other guys that we've talked about, just because we're kind of focusing on the explosives. But I think he's a young player that could potentially come onto this team and maybe replace Amari in a few years when Amari kind of gets older and goes down, because I think he can be a do-it-everything kind of wide receiver.
Yeah, and I mean, the Draft Network has him as their number 28 overall prospect. So that's why I'm thinking if some people are seeing him that high, they're usually pretty solid. They usually know what, have some good insight. So, and I think he's going to test really well. SMU, they produced a couple good players, Cortland Sutton, Cole Beasley, but it's not often that you see SMU receivers come in. So, I mean, you have seen it, them make the transition, but I like him a lot. I like the height. I mean, I know we've talked, you and I have talked about it before. The height's not as huge of a factor anymore, since you've got a couple guys that are over 6 foot now. And, you have a quarterback that doesn't throw it 4 feet above people's heads. But
you don't need it as much.
But I still do like when you can get a guy that has that size, has the route running, and can do something with the ball after the catch as well. So, and a good thing, the Browns are in a great position, because let's say Rasheed Rice is still there for them in the second round. They've got him really high on their board. They don't have to bring him in and expect him to be 1,000-yard receiver this year. Mm-hmm. You can work him into the system slowly. You can let him get accustomed to the speed of the NFL game, working alongside Amari Cooper, Donovan Peoples-Jones, assuming that he gets resigned. And 2 to 3 years down the road, let him really take off as, Cooper, gets to the age where you're ready to move on. So I think they're in a good spot that if somebody like him fell to them, it wouldn't be a bad pick at all.
Do you want to start on our boy?
Oh, Jalin Hyatt, number 1. Jalin Hyatt's another one that he fits everything. I think, he's young, 3 years. I
think he'll be 22 in September. I think his birthday's in September.
And he has everything. I mean, he's an ascending receiver. I think a lot of times you want to get that receiver that's still improving. You don't want a receiver that's plateaued. He had 276 yards as a freshman, 226 as a sophomore, and then this year he just absolutely broke out with 1,267 yards, 15 touchdowns. I know you wrote about it on Dawg Pound Daily today. His performance against Alabama. You can sit here and say all you want that he didn't play against the toughest competition for some of his career, but he went against Alabama, who has several guys that are being projected to go in the first, second round in the secondary, and he lit them up, absolutely lit them up. 19 yards per catch this year. I don't see a lot of flaws in his game. I think the biggest thing you might say is that, he's 180 pounds, so he might be a little on the thin side, but he hasn't had any durability concerns. And I just think that, he's able to high point the ball. He's got great hands, very elusive in the open field. So he's a guy that I feel like, if he's on the board when the Browns come on in the second round, I'm probably going to be sitting here screaming for them, pick this guy. And if they don't,
I'll turn it off if they don't. I'm like,
I'll probably start crying. But I'm man enough to admit it. I will cry. But I think more likely we might see him go a little bit earlier, especially if he gets to the combine and tests off the chart, which I think he could.
He's got it all. So So that Alabama game, 6 catches, 207 yards, and 5 touchdowns. So like one of them was on a crossing route, but the other ones were pretty much just on go routes where he just left these defenders, like you said, that will be playing on Sundays. He left them in the dust. I mean,
Yeah.
The only thing that I see an issue with is probably, and this is very teachable, I don't think he ran a very diverse route tree. Like, I think he ran like 3 routes. He ran a comebacker, a drag, and a go, and maybe some posts. But you know what I mean? Like, he ran some very basic concepts. But the best part about that is he plays primarily in the slot.
Mm-hmm.
And he does the one thing the Browns, what he does have experience in is what they need. They need that burn. And I mean, the dude is, I think someone said that in high school, when he ran like the scouting combine in high school, he ran a 4.31. And it was like, that was like before he got, bigger and stronger and faster. And I would assume he's probably every bit as that right now. Another one, let me look here. He wasn't really asked to block a lot. That's I think the biggest thing. If you watch him out wide in that spread offense, anytime he's not running a route and they're running the ball, he like chops his feet like he's doing a screen. Like every time he just does that. And you have to respect it. He pulled a lot of defensive backs that could not crash down because they were like, well, shit, if Hyatt really is taking a screen or because they would do like that stack formation, he would be like basically standing right behind the wide receiver. He would do that little thing and they're like, and it helped the running game. So in this system, if he's in the slot and things like that, I don't know. There's just not enough tape of him blocking. Like you can't find it. But I'm saying if that is it, not a really diverse route tree and, don't really know if he can block and you're drafting him to be like your 3rd wide receiver and your 4th receiving option. Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. And because if you really think about it, that's kind of what you had in Anthony Schwartz. You had a guy that didn't have a very diverse route tree. They took a gamble on him in the 3rd round. The difference is Hyatt can catch the football. So he can get past the guys and he can actually catch the ball. And then you work on all the other things later. And again, like we were talking about earlier, he didn't do a whole lot of run blocking. That's going to be something that he'll probably need to work on. But the more that this team becomes centered around Deshaun Watson, I think the less of an issue that becomes as well.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Well, Randy, I appreciate your time today, man. Before we jump off here real quick, just let everybody know where they can find all your stuff.
Yeah, follow us over on Dawg Pound Daily. You can see me on Twitter at rgurzi81. I also write on NFL Spin Zone and the Landry Hat, which is not about Jarvis Landry. It's actually about the Dallas Cowboys. So we have not made a Jarvis Landry centric site yet. But do
you have to explain that to people?
Yeah, actually, somebody really did. When I said something about the Landry Hat, they said something about Jarvis Landry not being on the Browns anymore. Like, no, it's actually covering the Cowboys. Like,
it's nothing to do with either one of those things.
No. But yeah, I was on there mid 2015 or something like that. It was where I actually got my start in writing, and I joined them back again last year. So you can catch me there as well. I usually do a lot of mock drafts on NFL Spin Zone, mock drafts and power rankings. So you can go in there and tell me I'm wrong if you'd like to.
That's the best.
I usually am.
Yeah, well, it is what it is.
It's a guess. It's a guess.
Guys, we appreciate you taking the time to watch us today. We'll see you guys again next time. As always, go Browns.